Is it better to eat the same foods every day or to switch it up? Watch this.
Our next caller is Andrea from Indiana.
Andrea, how can we help you?
Hi, thanks for taking my question today. I've been listening to you guys for a while and really enjoy the content. Also, I recently got the RGB bundle, which I'm digging. So again, thanks a ton. You guys are doing great work.
Awesome. Thank you.
So my question is regarding nutrition. I've been tracking my macros for about 6 years. And for the majority of it, I've generally followed a 40% protein, 30% carb, 30% fat diet. And I'm very routine based. So I eat pretty much the same thing every day, except for occasional vacations and holidays. And so I'm just curious if there's any advantage to changing up your nutrition plan outside of changing the amount of calories. So more like in terms of macro percentages or types of proteins.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
Great question. Yes, the answer is yes. There definitely is value. There's a couple places where you'll find value. One is in learning how to read the signals, because when you get so caught in a routine of eating in a particular way, you tend to lose touch with how your body feels eating other things. Okay, and that's potentially. So I see value in people trying different diets to see, wow, when I go really low carb, I notice improvements in my cognitive performance, or when I bump my carbs, I have better performance in the gym, or when I switch protein sources from, let's say, turkey to ground beef or to fish, I notice more or less inflammation or better recovery or better digestion. So there's that. There's also potential. You could potentially be developing food intolerances from eating the same things over and over again. So let's say you have a little bit of gut inflammation. That could cause proteins or amino acids to leak through the gut, and you could create some kind of mild immune reactions to the types of foods that you eat. This is why you'll see people with gut issues when they do gut testing or intolerance testing. They'll find that all the things that they eat, they're intolerant to. Well, it's because they eat them all the time. So their body's now developed kind of this immune response to those types of things. So wellness professionals or experts, or people like Paul Chek, who I would consider to be the godfather of the wellness space, advocates rotating foods specifically just for that reason. So those are two big reasons why I would say it's a good idea to rotate through those things.
I used to love to take my clients through like all popular diets. And then as we go through that process, I'd be constantly questioning them, like, what do you feel, and what do you like about this, or what do you don't like? And because I think in the context of your life, not always being exactly the same, I tend to like to eat different ways based off of my situation. So, I incorporate intermittent fasting sometimes. I incorporate a higher fat diet sometimes. Sometimes I go high carb, low. And so as you get to rotate through these different diets, you start to go, oh, you know what? Like, I don't have to be eating this way exactly the same all the time. I find value in, changing the diet up today because I'm going to be flying all day long, or I'm not going to have access to a lot of things. So I'm going to, or I know that when I eat with more carbs, I tend to crave more foods. And so when I'm trying to suppress my cravings, I'm going to try, a higher fat, higher protein. Like, so there's a lot of value in doing this, aside from also just, like Sal said, with potentially eliminating foods that you could have an intolerance to that you don't realize.
Yeah, I do want to give you credit, though. I think as trainers, we try to get our clients into the phase where you're in terms of like understanding your body on that level of like what works and, where your homeostasis is in terms of like what your meals consist of that works best. But now, after being there for so many years, to be able to optimize that and kind of go venture in these other directions, because there are, diets that lend better towards different benefits. And so to be able to kind of, maybe introduce something different for, brain function, health and all that, and then come back and get back to your regular routine. I think, there's got to be some benefit to that as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like, I'll give you an example, Andrea. If I know that I'm going to be on some big podcasts and I'm traveling, I will eat a particular way that I've identified for myself that maximizes my sharpness, my cognitive performance. If I know I'm going to have a particular type of workout or I want to hit a PR, then my diet will change based on that. If my sleep is off, if my digestion is in a particular way, then I'll adjust my diet in those ways. So basically what you're doing is you're getting a much more broad whole picture of how your body is affected by different foods. So when you do change to something else, pay attention to how you feel. Don't marry it. Just pay attention to how you feel. And then, throughout your entire life, you'll get a better idea of how to eat based off of the context of your life and your goals and kind of what you're looking to accomplish. It's a really cool place to be when you do it that way. That's kind of the route towards like what I would, for loosely define as intuitive eating.
Yep.
Especially since you've been very consistent with, and you really have got your macros dialed, and you've been doing this for a long time. So it's easier for someone like you to measure how these different ways of eating is affecting you versus somebody who never eats consistently at all a certain way.
Yeah.
It's hard for that person to pinpoint, oh, wow, when I do increase this, I really notice the difference in my sleep or some of the things south. So it's actually, like Justin said, you're in a great place because you have built this consistency of tracking and paying attention. So now to start to manipulate and play with that, like you're the perfect client to really make them become more aware of how they're eating intuitively.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that you could actually develop intolerances just by eating the same thing. So I'd be curious to find out. And what I think I'll do is just throw it on a 180. Like I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of ground turkey. And so maybe filtering in a lot more fish and ground beef and just see how I feel. So
along those lines, it's actually almost always that.
It's very common.
And it's almost always the
favorite
food
foods.
that you wouldn't think. So I think that's one of the most interesting things. There's been many times where I've had clients who didn't realize that the food they eat every single day that they thought agreed with them didn't so much. There was like this thing, like, I'd have a client who'd be like, yeah, I always feel like I have this little bit of a pooch, or I just, unless I'm waking up first thing in the morning, my stomach's flat in the morning, but then I just feel like I'm bloated kind of all day, but not real bad, but just kind of, and then all of a sudden we change a food that was a favorite food or a food they eat every single day out of there. And they're like, oh my God, I feel so much leaner. It's like, well, we didn't lose a bunch of body fat in 3 days, but what we did was we eliminated something that maybe your body, and it doesn't have to be a massive reaction. Sometimes it's very subtle like that, but then they see a difference in the way they look and feel.
yeah, awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, to go a little deeper into that for people who are like, huh, how does that work? Like, why does that make sense? So when you have slight gut inflammation, which can be caused by lots of different things, lots of stress, overexercise, lack of sleep, hormone changes, whatever, the gut is affected by almost everything. When you have a little bit of inflammation in the gut, the junctions in the wall of the gut, you get a little bit of spacing in between them, and they become leaky. This is the term leaky gut syndrome, right? The medical term now is intestinal wall hyperpermeability, I think is what they'll say. And so when you have a little bit of space there, then when you eat foods or amino acids, particles, whatever, markers of the foods that you eat can go through the gut when they're not supposed to. And when your body sees that, it identifies it, oftentimes it creates an immune response. It's like a call to arms. It doesn't have to be a big reaction. It can be a very minor reaction, and you can almost get used to this reaction and not realize that the food that you're eating is causing this until you remove it, and then all of a sudden you feel less bloated, more energy, just generally better. So this is why the foods you eat all the time are typically the ones that you'll develop an intolerance to, because they're the ones that your body is mounting this reaction to. So switching them out allows your body to give it a break. It brings inflammation back down, and then you can reintroduce those foods again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always thought it was a good idea to rotate food anyway, and like I always like the idea of trying to go with what's in season in terms of because nature just has this way of providing the right types of nutrients for certain seasons where you don't get a lot of sun or there's a lot of colds and viruses out there and things to combat that. So to kind of follow that natural pattern, I think is something to consider, but it is a lot more mentally simplistic to keep this kind of regimen of what works.
Well, there's also micronutrients, and eating the same food. If you eat even if they're good foods and they fit your macro profile, you're eating the same kind of micronutrients all the time. And there's benefits to lots of different micronutrients. And so what you might find is that you're not, and that it's not enough to make you fat or
Yeah.
not be able to build muscle or whatever like that. But your
You'll
body,
feel it.
yeah, your body may be craving and needing it because you are low in it and you don't even realize you're low and you don't think you're doing something wrong or bad because your macros are in line. And simply by rotating through that food and getting something else introduced in there, you pick those micronutrients up, and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I feel a little bit better. That's weird. My macros are the same. I'm doing the same training exercise. Oh, well, maybe you were lacking in these micronutrients because you ate X, Y, and Z all the time and you needed this and now you got it. And so you feel different.